Well, is it a case of a little too late as the government rushes to trace hundreds of people who are in close contact with those that have been proven to have the deadly coronavirus? This is Primetime News on the 23rd day of March 2020. Thank you so much for joining us for this bulletin. My name is Mnene, our sign language interpreter. At the bottom end of your screen is Joyce Wairimo. But first, let's have a look at the headlines. Welcome to the program once more. My name is Mnene, our sign language interpreter for this broadcast tonight is Joyce Wairimo. Now, to begin, the government has confirmed one more coronavirus case, putting the total number of those that have been confirmed to 15. Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe in a media briefing said that more than 600 persons have been traced awaiting for the test results. Our reporter Jeff Hayemba kickstarts this bulletin tonight.
As coronavirus cases surge worldwide, Kenya is determined to wipe out the deadly virus, which is spreading in a supersonic speed. Just a day after confirming 8 new cases of the COVID-19, Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe reported another case.
We have received confirmation of one more case of a patient who has tested positive for coronavirus. This brings the total number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in Kenya to 16. The latest is a close contact of one of the 8 cases we reported yesterday.
Mutahi Kagwe in a media briefing reaffirmed Kenyans that the government is on toes in combating the virus, which has so far claimed more than 14,000 people with nearly 350,000 confirmed cases across the world.
The ministry, working with the county governments, has traced 646 persons who had come into close contact with the confirmed cases. 96 of these contacts have already been released from our follow-up program after completing the 14-day follow-up period. Those remaining in our follow-up list are 550 persons.
Apart from Kilifi, Deputy Governor Gideon Saburi, who was made public, a priest who landed from Rome in Italy, is also under close supervision after mingling with the residents of Unguja in Siaya County. Each and every individual arriving in the country has been subjected to self-quarantine.
All the patients, except one, who is at the coast, are still in stable condition and improving. 11 individuals are currently admitted at Bagathi Hospital awaiting test results. That there was indeed one of the 8 people I mentioned yesterday was a priest who had traveled to Rome and had come to Kenya and is currently at Bagathi, in isolation in Bagathi. We have also done contact tracing with the people he came in contact with, and it is a continuing exercise.
Yeah, but we can't sign this up. No, Professor, you have to hear this.
Following this directive, hundreds of the Kenyans were left stranded at the Kenya School of Government, where the affected persons waited for the directions over the mandatory quarantine.
I want at this point to issue an apology to the parents and the individuals who have been so inconvenienced since last night. We are aware that we had logistical challenges that we encountered as a result of the speed at which we wanted to move into quarantining individuals. I also want to thank those hotels that have already admitted the quarantined people, but to make also a passionate appeal. If your normal charges in a hotel room are 12,000 shillings, you should be charging no more than 50% of that, or even 25% of that. This is business you didn't expect.
Until now, it remains unclear whether the government will be able to trace all the persons who made contact with the patients who are now under medication, with the several awaiting for the results. Despite the government putting in more efforts in combating the deadly coronavirus in the country, the number of the patients who have so far tested positive continues to balloon each and every day, a move that has now put the country into a panic mode. Reporting for Ebru TV, I'm Jeff Khemba.
Well, moving on, jobs losses loom for Kenyans as the COVID-19 outbreak continues to take its toll on the country's economy. The Ministry of Labour has directed stakeholders to come up with what it calls practical solutions to ensure that employers do not resort to firing their employees. Have a look.
The COVID-19 continues to take its toll on the country's economy, and employed Kenyans are a worried lot during this time. Labour Cabinet Secretary Simon Chelugui has urged employers to find a practical solution that will cushion employees against the looming job losses.
In view of that, it's clear that unemployment, redundancies and job cuts are imminent.
This particular morning, employees who are paying, let's say, 100 shillings for transport have ended up paying almost 3-4 times. What does that mean? It means that it is impacting directly to the worker.
Measures include sending our employees home to work from home where they can, or sending them on leave so that we reduce the numbers of people coming to work and present on the job on a daily basis. This has meant that business actually scales down its operations.
The hardest hit industry in the country is the flower sector due to the ban of some international flights.
We as in the labor sector are hard hit because we have seen aeroplanes are parked or are going to be parked midnight tomorrow. And we have seen flowers, no lack or no demand of flowers in our destination markets.
Other sectors are tourism, manufacturing, agriculture and transport. Stakeholders have been urged to come up with solutions that will help the country move forward as the number of COVID-19 continues to surge.
But post-corona or post this crisis, there will be life. And therefore, we have all to prepare for it and face it and deal with it. And it will call for sacrifice from a number of us, including pay cuts, including foregoing some benefits, so that we can resuscitate and mainstream back our economy.
The Treasury has set out 141 billion economic stimulus to cushion the country through the surging pandemic. Abdulaziz Hashimi, Brew TV.
Now, ODM party leader Raila Odinga has dismissed reports that he met Kilifi County Governor Hassan Kingi during his recent visit to Mombasa, amid reports that he could have exposed himself to COVID-19. This is after the governor went to quarantine for mingling with his deputy who turned positive.
Just hours after Kilifi Governor Hassan Kingi went under quarantine for mingling with his deputy, who later tested positive for COVID-19, and the coastal region is on high alert after more people went into quarantine for coming into contact with Kilifi's deputy governor. One such person is former gubernatorial candidate Suleiman Shahbal, who says he has decided to isolate himself after he came into contact with Kilifi Governor Hassan Kingi, a development that has raised eyebrows online since the ODM leader met with Shahbal in Mombasa recently. Raila then met with Deputy President William Ruto when he, together with other leaders, went to pay a visit to Jubilee Secretary General Raphael Tuju, who was recuperating after he was involved in a road accident. Raila and Ruto were then seen at State House on Saturday for the National Prayer Day, amid fears that there could be exposure. But in a statement, the ODM chief denied meeting Kingi during his recent trip in Mombasa, saying he only met with Mombasa Deputy Governor William Kingi. Raila says he is observing the Ministry of Health directives and has since suspended travels outside the country, public gatherings and meetings. Now this as more than 13 police officers from Kilifi County, among them a deputy OCS and base commander, have been placed under self-quarantine following contact with Deputy Governor Gideon Saburi, who is believed to have contracted coronavirus. The deputy OCS is complaining of difficulty in breathing and has since been placed under quarantine, awaiting the test results.
Now, the term self-quarantine has now become too popular after Kenya recorded its first coronavirus case. Many have been using the term loosely to mean staying at home, but far from that. Self-quarantine means staying in a secluded room with good ventilation to allow fresh air in the room to avoid catching or spreading a disease or virus, as Dr. Amoth from the Ministry of Health now explains.
Self-quarantine means that you are in a room of your own, well ventilated, as I explained last time, probably open windows. Best case scenario is that you have separate hygiene or toilet facilities. In case that is not possible, then after each and every use of the toilet facilities, then you require decontamination, which you can easily be able to do with jig. You take 1 part jig, maybe 1 cup jig, 6 cups of water, and you can be able to use that to be able to clean the toilet. You also, during the self-quarantine period, in case you have a coexisting medical condition, you need to have your medicines ready with you for the next 14 days. If you are working, it means you don't go to work for the next 14 days and you keep to your room. If you are supposed also to clean your linen, your tables, your bed, you can use the same 1 part jig, 6 parts water for decontamination. You are not supposed to share any of your toiletries, your utensils, things like toothbrushes. You should use your own. That is basically what self-quarantine is.
Now, Kenyans can already feel the pinch of the government's directive to reduce the number of passengers in public service vehicles. This is after the PSVs doubled up fare prices in different routes. However, Health CS Mutahi Kagwe has directed the public service transport providers not to hike the prices, terming the move as immoral.
Kenyans have been forced to pay more for transport in the public service vehicle sector since the directive by Health Cabinet Secretary to reduce the number of passengers boarding in buses. Health CS Mutahi Kagwe directed 14-seater matatus to carry a maximum of 8 passengers, while 25-seaters to carry 15, with most matatus within the CBD complying with the directive. However, most Nairobi residents were this morning forced to part with double the price of their normal price.
Nikisubiri gari, kila gari ambayo ilikuwa inaingia ilikuwa na watu wachache, lakini pia itaki kuongeza, lakini yenye ilikuwa inapita ilikuwa inalipisha 100, na hiyo ni place ambayo mimi nimezoea zaidi. Ikienda sana mimi ulipa 50 bob, lakini asubuhi tena wakati mwingine 30 bob, lakini tena leo nimeshtuka kusema kweli, but ni effect ambayo imefanyika kubwa kwa side yangu yani.
Passengers in Machakos County heading to town were forced to part with at least 150 shillings to 200 shillings, different from the normal 100 shillings. Along Thika Road, the government's directive was exercised. However, passengers had to part with at least 100 shillings to 150 shillings, where the cost is normally 50 shillings. Other areas affected also include Westlands, Upper Hill, among other areas.
Lakini fare imekuwa juu kidogo, maana mahali penye nilikuwa ninalipa kama 50 to 80 bob, unalipisha mpaka hata 100, 150. Yeah, so na watu ni wengi kwa stage. So imeweza kuadhiri. Alafu kujaribu kuangalia Uber, unajaribu kurequest hata Uber inapata iko juu tena zaidi, wameongeza. So kama 700, 800, so imekuwa ni changamoto sana.
While most routes from the CBD complied, a section of the Nairobi routes did not adhere to the directive and carried excess passengers. Most of the passengers who still have to fend for their families say they cannot afford to stay at home but would rather risk going to look for business.
Wakenya wengi wenye tuko saizi ni hand to mouth. Si ati kwamba tuko na place ambayo tumeweka do ambapo tukikaa kwa nyumba tutakula. So nimekaa mtu kuangalia kama kuna wala wateja wangu wa kila siku ambao wanaingia kama naweza pata mmoja, though pia hata hakuna.
Being a pastor, ni kujaribu kwenda kutafuta. Unajua tumeambiwa pia saa zingine si vizuri kutegemea sadaka. saa zingine hazikuji. Kama saa hizi tumekuwa affected kama wachungaji, makanisa imefungwa. So sadaka tutatoa wapi? So kuna hile kazi kidogo tunafanya.
However, Health CS Mutahi Kagwe says the move by public service vehicles to hike fares is immoral. Last week, the government directed 14-seater matatus to carry a maximum of 8 passengers, 25-seaters to carry 15, buses whose seating capacity is 30 and above to have 60% seating capacity. Dana Rachel Mbogwa, Ibru TV.
Well, it's 15 minutes past the hour. Time now for a very short break. When we come back, we get to also hear from the matatu operators on what they expect the government to do to them to cushion them from the tough economic times. Thank you for staying with us. Now, the public service vehicle operators in Naivasha have warned that they could double their fares if the government does not lower the price of fuel. Meanwhile, the transport sector operators in Voi have today been issued with hand sanitizers, which they will be using to sanitize their customers before they board their matatus. Transport sector operators in Voi were trained on how to fumigate their vehicles before passengers are allowed to board them. The operators have praised the move by Governor Granton Semboja to issue them with sanitizers in an effort to prevent the spread of the deadly coronavirus.
Governor wetu Granton Semboja amekuwa na mikakati katika sekta ya health kuhakikisha kwamba mikakati imewekwa kutenga mahospitali na kuhakikisha kwamba vifaa vimepatikana katika hospitali hapa na pale.
And in Naivasha, commuters are set to feel the pinch as PSV operators promise to pass on the high costs of operating to them.
Mshahara driver itatoka wapi? Itapatikana kweli? Makondakta. Haya, kondakta atakula nini? Driver atakula nini? Mwenye gari, insurance mguu ataweka nini?
Dereva si mjinga. Hizi viti zingine lazima akave target yake ya siku. So ile kitu wanafanya, wanaongezea bei zaidi ya yenye tulikuwa tunalipa. So unapata tulikuwa tunalipa shilingi 200, tunalipa shilingi 350.
This follows the directive by the government that 14-seater matatus carry 8 passengers, while buses are expected to reduce their capacity to 60% as part of measures to fight coronavirus. The operators want the government to caution them from the high costs of operating their businesses as the crisis persists.
Watu wanane tumekubali, lakini ukiangalia petroli ama diesel iko juu sana, 100 something. Tukiwatoka kutoka 60 ama 50, tutaweza kufanya hiyo kazi. Hiyo ndio tu tungeomba kwa serikali. Na tayari sisi tumeanza na tumekubali.
Matatus were charging as high as 50% of normal fares in Kisumu, Nairobi, Nyeri, Mombasa, among others. In Machakos, Governor Alfred Mutua has threatened to revoke licenses for matatu SACCOs which were overcharging passengers. Now, a man states that he has been forced to go into quarantine together with his 7 family members in their home in Nyakeore village, Nyamira County, over coronavirus fears. The man reportedly jetted back into the country from the United States on March 10th this year and was screened at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport before finally arriving in Nyamira on March 14th. This even as the government has ordered for mandatory quarantine for those coming back to the country.
Nyamira County Commissioner Amos Mariba has said health officials accompanied by police officers and Nyumba Kumi officials on Sunday traced the man's home following reports that he was roaming freely. Mr. Mariba added that the family will now be under the close supervision of public health officers and security officers, further urging residents to remain calm and observe precautionary measures. This comes barely days after the Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe gave a direct warning to those who come back to the country and refuse to comply with the directive to self-quarantine.
NAC has decided that all persons who violate the self-quarantine requirement will be forcibly quarantined for a full 14 days at their cost and thereafter arrested and charged in accordance with the Public Health Act.
The visibly angry CS said self-quarantine is not a request but an order that should be followed strictly. Last week, CS Mutahi said that only Kenyans and foreigners with residence permits will be allowed into the country under one condition.
This measure at the airport is going to be instituted further by making those traveling into the country to swear a legal document that they will comply with what they are supposed to do.
The government has, however, changed tactic and ordered cancellation of all flights into the country effective Wednesday, the 25th of March, midnight.
Those coming into the country between now and Wednesday, may they be Kenyans or foreigners, will undergo mandatory quarantine at a government-designated facility at their own expense.
So far, several African countries, including Uganda, have cancelled both local and international flights to curb the spread of the deadly COVID-19 that has so far claimed more than 14,500 lives and over 341,000 others infected. However, the number of those recovering is on the rise at over 98,000 people as at now. Winnie Lubembe for Ebru TV.
Now, a day after the government asked Kenyans to stay indoors in order to curb the spread of the coronavirus, Eldoret OCS Mike Lekalaile and Rift Valley Commissioner George Natembeya took to the streets, calling upon the residents to stay at home in line with the directive issued by the Minister of Health, Mutahi Kagwe. Our reporter Milia Kisienya with more.
Watu wanasema kwamba wakikaa nyumbani watakufa, hakutakuwa na chakula, hii ugonjwa itakupeleka nyumbani tu.
The Rift Valley Regional Boss George Natembeya took to the streets calling upon residents to follow the directive by the Minister of Health of staying at home in an effort to curb the spread of the coronavirus. Natembeya, accompanied by other officials of the county, warned on those who will not comply to the orders that necessary measures by the government will be taken against them.
Sema kwamba Waafrika na watu wako na kichwa ngumu, ama Mwafrika hawezi kushikwa na hii ugonjwa. Tukue ni watu wakielewa vitu mara moja na kufuata hizo guidelines. Kwa sasa kama una shughuli town, kwa mfano una shughuli hapa kwa stage, unafanya nini hapa? Atumekaa nyumbani, umeboeka. Unaboeka kuja kutafuta ugonjwa kwa stage? Kaa nyumbani. Tumeelewana? Maana tutakuja hapa kutafuta ni wahudumu peke yake watakuwa hapa na abiria.
I am your OCS and I mind about you. I mind about your life.
Eldoret OCS Mike Lekalaile also took to the streets of Eldoret, urging residents to follow suit the stay-at-home directive and save lives. Elsewhere in Machakos County, boda and tuk-tuk operators have been banned from operating within the counties, with Machakos Governor Alfred Mutua waiving all their tax charges for the rest of the calendar year as a way to compensate and cushion them for the loss of income. The move is aimed at ensuring that the deadly coronavirus is not spread among the residents, with the residents also being directed to be in their houses by 7 p.m. every day. So far, the country has confirmed 16 cases of the patients who tested positive for the virus, with stringent measures now in place across the country to fight the pandemic COVID-19. Milia Kisenya for Ebru TV.
Now, controversial blogger Robert Alai was let go on a cash bail of 50,000 shillings for posting unverified information over the deadly coronavirus. Alai was arraigned and charged this morning of a publication of false information contrary to Section 23 of the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act. Our reporter Jeff Hayemba with more details on that.
As Kenya intensifies its efforts in combating the deadly coronavirus, too much pressure lies on the government in releasing the information to the members of the public. Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe on Sunday confirmed 15 cases in the county, even as they trace more than 363 people who got in contact with the patients, a process that is likely to bear no fruit. Last week, a controversial blogger Robert Alai was nabbed by the DCI detectives after claiming that 2 people had died from the coronavirus in Mombasa County. In an alarming tweet, Robert Alai said to have posted on his Twitter account on the 19th day of March 2020 at the unknown place within the Republic of Kenya and slammed the Kenyan government for hiding COVID-19 death-related cases at the port of Mombasa. The charge says Alai's tweet was false and was meant to cause panic and fear among the citizens of the Republic of Kenya. Robert Alai denied the charges and released on 50,000 Kenyan shillings cash bail or a bond of 150,000 Kenyan shillings and directed to provide one contact person. The blogger was charged with publication of false information contrary to Section 23 of the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act. The Kilifi County case of the Deputy Governor is the only confirmed case which has been made public.
The individual that I spoke about in Kilifi is already positive. The individual. Therefore, the people, in fact, I can tell you that the people who came in contact with this individual are already in self-quarantine. Never mind that the tests are going on. Even as the tests are going on, they are all in quarantine. And of course, upon them testing positive, then we would have to take them in. But at the moment, they are in self-quarantine.
Mutei Kagwe has now announced of tough measures against people who will defy the quarantine orders.
Go home. Stay at home. People are getting sick because they came in touch with somebody else. The people we are talking about, the 8 people we are talking about, some of them are tourists. They have been to the pubs. They have been to the hotels. They have come in touch with some of us, and you don't know, as you speak next to your colleague, you don't know who is sick. And therefore we are saying this is not business as usual. And we will...
More than 14,000 people have succumbed to coronavirus around the globe. Reporting for Ebru TV, I'm Jeff Khaimba.
Moving on, President Uhuru Kenyatta has warned that the government will take decisive action against individuals who are defying measures issued by the Ministry of Health announced to curb coronavirus. Speaking from State House, Nairobi, President Kenyatta also announced that the government is working with Google Loon to help Kenyans in remote areas access internet services in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic.
My government continues to roll out a raft of measures to mitigate the disruption to our life arising from this pandemic. So in that regard, and indeed to foster communication and enable Kenyans to retain and enhance remote access to their offices and enterprises, my administration has granted approvals that will ensure that universal 4G data health coverage is available throughout our country. I am pleased to announce that the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority has signed an agreement with Google Loon in order to allow Loon balloons to fly over Kenyan airspace. These balloons, which will hover well above our commercial airspace, will carry 4G base stations and have the capacity to provide wider signal coverage. This intervention will enable Kenya to retain her competitive advantage in ICT and innovation in the midst of the current crisis, while at the same time laying foundations for greater expansion once the current health challenge is contained. Once inaugurated, this service will extend Telkom Kenya's 4G network to areas that are not covered by any of our mobile network providers.
Well, a section of Kenyans wasn't really amused by that address there by President Uhuru Kenyatta. Will be telling you why right after this short break. Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. Now, a group of Kenyans thought that the president should have touched on the economy today on his address, and especially the hot potato that is rent prices. Let's have a look at some of the messages that Kenyans had to post, especially on their social media platforms. Eastland's youth leader, Kibet Henry, says, Mr. President, Kenyans don't need 4G, they need 4 kg of food, and they also need 4K of rent. Network GHA, hashtag Uhuru Kenyatta. We have a DJ Double Trouble. Dear Uhuru Kenyatta, we are all aware that your government has received billions to help fight coronavirus in Kenya. That is disputed, or I can't really confirm that. But my worry goes to the slumless, fortunate people. At Beverly Kwambo, Ngoja, President Uhuru Kenyatta was waiting for you to address landlords, matatu owners, shop owners, continuous supply of food, reduced cost of living, only for the president to talk about the deal that they signed with Telkom and Google. Another handle that wasn't really quite amused by the president's address at Mwananchi, who says we need 4G to download recipes and to keep us busy as we stay at home. That's a question. Hashtag water and food first. Some feedback from Kenyans there who probably had expected the president to talk about something different from the deal that Telkom Kenya signed with Google. But the president says that that is really important to keep Kenyans working from home, as well as students catching up with their studies. Now, Machakos County residents have been directed to be in their houses and stay indoors by 7 p.m. every day. This is in a bid to tame the spread of the contagious coronavirus, the county government of Machakos has said, while also resolving to suspend boda-bodas, maruti and tuk-tuks business. Governor Alfred Mutua has waived all the tax charges for the rest of the calendar year as a way to compensate and cushion them from the loss of income, as Busara Naman now tells us.
The directives were resolved after several virtual meetings with members of the Machakos County Security Team, the Coronavirus Cabinet Subcommittee and other stakeholders. The boda-boda ban will take effect from Wednesday, March 25th from 5 a.m. Other businesses banned include Amira dens, Amogoka dens and pool playing areas. Mutua has also directed the Machakos government staff to work on shifts. Chief officers have been ordered to develop work shift schedules by the end of today. All office meetings, staff meetings and departmental meetings will be conducted virtually using the internet and social media. Also, all markets in Machakos are to be sanitized and fumigated, and traders encouraged to operate safely, while market days have been banned to restrict movement from one town to another. Busara Naman for Ebru TV.
Now, a day after the government asked Kenyans to stay indoors in order to curb the spread of the coronavirus, a police officer in Eldoret has been captured on video imploring citizens to adhere to the directive. The officer asks the residents to stay home in line with the directive issued by the Minister of Health, Mutahi Kagwe.
I am your OCS and I mind about you. I mind about your life, your brother's life, your sister's life. Okay? So, we've been after money for a long time. We've been after money for a long time. So, let us make sure that we go home. And the doctor is my food. I'm a doctor. And nyumbani. Daktari. Tafadhali. Daktari wanamshauri kesho. Unaona daktari anawaambia kitu fulani.
Now, let's talk about a silent or an unseen enemy that is threatening to make people not really stable. As countries battle the rising cases of COVID-19, psychologists are worried about the mental state of people in countries that are under total lockdown. In a report released by the World Health Organization on mental health considerations for COVID-19, the governing health body says managing one's stress and psychosocial well-being during this time is as important as managing physical health.
When WHO declared the outbreak of the new coronavirus disease in Hubei province, China, to be a public health emergency of international concern, it stated that there is a high risk of COVID-19 spreading to other countries. And true to that, 186 countries around the globe, according to the World Health Organization, have recorded positive cases with over 300,000 people infected. However, with uncertainty surrounding when this nightmare will end, most people have expressed anxiety. Arthur Muriuki, a psychologist, says the confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the country and a possible lockdown may result in a spike of anxiety levels among people after the pandemic.
With staying indoors and worry, because remember, anxiety is about worry, and depression too is about worry. then we can notice the graph you were showing me earlier about a graph on the infections. Then we can not expect that these graph will also be similar to depression cases and anxiety cases.
Yeah.
Hopefully, and against we crossing fingers and hoping that we don't get there, is that we can also begin to hear some random cases of suicide attempts.
Yeah.
Because people will get to a place where they might say, I don't know if I can cope with this anymore. I don't know if I can sit here and watch my family suffer. And this is expected. In any population, in this kind of environment, it's not abnormal for this to happen.
He notes that the situation may be worse in those who are in quarantine now.
Some actually have been, in other places, have decided, I'm not going to eat. I'm going to die anyway, so what's the point?
Yeah.
And you see, this is not abnormal. It's a normal. Remember, what anxiety is a normal body reaction to a stressor.
Yeah.
They are stressed about what's going on, and if they have very severe symptoms, maybe the cough is very painful and the chest is too congested to even breathe. These symptoms are affirming their thoughts.
He has urged all Kenyans to take precautionary measures and follow the guidelines issued by the WHO and the Ministry of Health to prevent the spread of the virus. The World Health Organization has also urged people to be empathetic to those who got infected in and from any country and to avoid watching, reading or listening to news that causes one to feel anxious or distressed, and most importantly, to take practical steps to protect self and loved ones. Winnie Lubembe for Ebru TV.
Now, the random screening for COVID-19 in Nairobi has so far identified 2 suspected cases with individuals recording above normal temperatures. The County Department of Health says the exercise will continue with as many as 12,000 Kenyans being screened since the exercise began on Saturday.
So far, Nairobi City County government has screened more than 12,000 individuals in efforts to curb the spread of the virus. Testing was launched last week along with a fumigation exercise across the country that has seen 12,590 individuals screened, among them 5,100 adults, 5,515 children and 3,477 youths, with only 2 individuals having elevated temperatures. Among the areas that were fumigated in the Nairobi CBD are General Post Office, GPO, public resting areas around the Hilton Hotel, Kencom Bus Stage, Aga Khan Walk and the expansive Gikomba Market. Other places include Koja Stage, City Market, National Archives, Jivanjiri Gardens, Hakati Road, Tomboya Street, Muthura Market, Ronald Ngala Street and Mfangano Lane. Nairobi County Health Executive Hitan Majevdia said that the focus this week will be on the city's main bus station, as well as the railway's matatu and train termini, where screening and fumigation will be carried out for the next 4 days up to Friday, March 27th. 215 county health officers are involved in the fumigation, which targets public resting furniture, bus stops, markets and other areas with large social gatherings. The county has further made available 13 ambulances for use to transport any suspected case to the quarantine center at Mbagathi Hospital. 7 of the ambulances are at Kibera South Health Center, Mathare Hospital, Mukuru Health Center, Mutuini Hospital, Pumwani Hospital, Kahawa West and Dandora 2 Health Center. In addition, a rapid response team has been put in place to actively coordinate response to the coronavirus pandemic. So far, the county has trained 675 healthcare workers from 200 health facilities, both public and private, with a plan to have 3,000 healthcare workers trained. The Health CEC further said they have also trained all county and sub-county health managers who are currently rolling out and supervising health facilities, as well as offering community-level training.
Now, the Central Regional Commissioner Wilfred Nyagwanga has directed local administrators to enforce self-quarantine for all people who have visited the region from abroad in the recent past in a bid to break the chain of coronavirus transmission. Nyagwanga has tasked chiefs and their assistants, as well as the Nyumba Kumi clusters, to track all visitors who have come into the region recently in order to curb the spread of the deadly disease. Speaking today during a press briefing on the coronavirus situation in the region, Nyagwanga says there have been reports of some visitors who have been seen in public posing danger to others. The regional boss at the same time banned roadside hawking of foodstuffs, including water and fruits, to motorists to reduce contact that is one of the main channels of spreading the virus.
We have seen that certain people who have maybe gone abroad, they have come back. What we are telling the communities across the region ya Central ni kuhakikisha watu wengine wametoka ng'ambo, wengine walikuja Jumamosi wakaingia kwa vijiji with the aim that they were to quarantine themselves. But unfortunately sometimes wengine hawafanyi hivyo. Utawaona wameingia kwa market. Now we are not sure whether they are 100% headed. So tumesema wananchi na chiefs will provide information kwa hiyo watu wote wale wametoka nje kuhakikisha kwamba wasikuje kusambaza hiyo virusi katika region ya Central.
Now, as governments around the world, including the United States, scramble to deal with the coronavirus pandemic, experts speaking at a VOA town hall warn that the lack of widespread testing further contributes to the rising number of cases. Have a look.
As the number of confirmed cases of the coronavirus continue to rise worldwide, infectious disease experts are ringing the alarm.
Certainly there's accelerated work around vaccine development and possible treatments, but in many ways we've been set back by the lack of testing, certainly in this country and in other regions of the world.
Speaking at a virtual Voice of America town hall on COVID-19, the experts stressed the need for widespread testing, warning that many cases have gone undetected, furthering the spread of the virus.
There are rates of transmission that come from people who have no or low symptoms. And so given that we have had very low rates of testing in this country, it's hard to know the denominator, and I think that's the most critical piece.
The World Health Organization has also called for countries to scale up COVID-19 examinations, saying it's necessary in order to suppress and control a pandemic of this magnitude. However, high demand and mixed messages that only those in dire need can access the test have hampered efforts in the United States, leaving some individuals to resort to other solutions.
If you have a kind of misunderstanding that maybe you just do some kind of self-testing that you are not infected, you may be careless and easily transmit that to your family members, because 85% of those transmission is from homes that they can transmit to their family members or friends.
Jason Farley from Johns Hopkins University in the state of Maryland says governments need to take more action to counter such misinformation, which has furthered the spread.
We have to have clear, consistent messaging across the world. That's first and foremost. We all need to understand the threat we're under, and we need to be able to respond appropriately with the information we receive.
U.S. President Donald Trump recently invoked a law aimed at increasing the production of medical supplies critical against the raging coronavirus pandemic. Jason Sameoni, VOA News, Washington.
Well, let's jump over now to the world of sports. Harambee Stars strength and conditioning coach Michael Igendia is in self-quarantine. Igendia recently returned to the country from South Africa, where he had attended a FIFA conference. In a statement, Football Kenya Federation says Igendia has been in self-quarantine for a week now as a precautionary measure. His self-quarantine ends next week as per the World Health Organization's advisory. Well, that's it tonight on Ebru Primetime News on this 23rd day of March 2020. Thank you so much for watching, and that is on behalf of everyone who made this bulletin amazing. Well, we want to hear from you what you think about this bulletin. 40290 at Ebru TV Kenya is our Twitter handle. Talk to us, tell us what you think about this broadcast as well as our general programming. As from tomorrow, Ebru TV News is going to be giving you a chance to be telling us what you are doing currently at home or your experiences of working from home. You can send those short clips and we'll be airing them as from tomorrow at 1 p.m., 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Mnene. Our sign language interpreter. The bottom end of your screen is Joyce Werimo.